Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. My name is Spencer, and this is a story of how I caught my girlfriend with the same guy she swore over, and over was just a friend, and how I walked away from everything, without a word, on the very same day I had planned to propose to her. But to really understand how we even got here, I need to take you back to where it all began. Here's how everything started. My girlfriend, Megan, and I were together for a little over 3 years. We first met in college, toward the end of our final year. Just two people, introduced by mutual friends at a graduation party. We clicked easily. After graduation, when most people were drifting apart, we did the opposite. We stayed in touch, made time for each other, and slowly, our connection deepened. About a year ago, we made the decision to move in together. Megan had just landed a new job at a fast-paced creative agency. It was a kind of job that came with tight deadlines, last-minute meetings, and team events that often ran late into the night. We both understood that things would change, that our schedules might not align the way they used to. But instead of living separately and trying to navigate that distance, we thought, why not live under the same roof? Why not create a space where we could still see each other at the end of the day, even if just for a little while? So we combined our finances and got a bigger place. A shared space that reflected the fact that this wasn't just casual anymore. We were serious. Or, at least, I was. By that point, I already knew I wanted to marry her. It was something I had settled in my mind long before we unpacked the first moving box. I didn't say it out because I didn't want to pressure her. But I saw our home as the first real step toward a future together. Living together was never just a convenience to me. It was a promise. So here's where things really started to change. It was a few months into Megan's new job at the creative agency, and I was proud of her. She started talking about this one coworker a lot. His name is coming up. She'd mentioned funny things he said at work, how he helped her finish a project, how good he was at what he did, how he just gets it. You know how someone's voice changes when they talk about something or someone they really like? Yeah, I started hearing that more often. At first, I tried to play it cool. Of course, she's going to connect with her team. It's not a crime to have a favorite coworker, right? But then the comparison started. Quiet digs that didn't sound like digs unless you were paying close attention. I'd be lying if I said it didn't bother me. But I didn't want to come off as jealous or insecure. So I told myself, you're about to propose, and you're acting like a jealous teenager. Grow up. It sounds dumb now, but at the time, I believed I was doing the mature thing by staying quiet. One weekday evening, I had planned dinner. Just one of our usual routines. I waited for her. Hours passed. No calls. No texts. Finally, she walked through the door, tired. I asked if she was okay, and she gave me the usual line, work was crazy. We had to stay late to meet deadlines. I nodded, even though I was already halfway through my dinner alone. She apologized, said she was starving, then stood up to grab some water. That's when her phone lit up on the table as she walked into the kitchen. I glanced, and it was a message from this coworker. It read, "How was the traffic from your side?" Then the next line, "Wish you stayed longer with me." My world stopped. I was confused. She had just told me she was at the office the whole time. But this guy's message didn't match that statement. Wish you stayed longer. Longer where? Traffic from where? Because there is no traffic from her office to our house. I looked back at her phone. It was locked. I didn't have her password. I couldn't see more. When she came back to the table, I looked at her and calmly asked her to unlock her phone. She immediately got defensive. Why, she asked. I told her I saw the message from her coworker. I asked her straight up, what's going on between you two? She looked shocked. Said I was overreacting. Said they were just coworkers who happened to work in the same place. But when I asked her again, then just open your phone and show me, she refused. Said I should believe her. I wasn't even accusing her of anything at that point. I just wanted clarity. But her refusal and panic were enough to raise every alarm in my head. We argued. Voices raised. Emotions high. She eventually stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door. I sat there in silence, not even touching the rest of my food. The next day, after that big argument about her coworker, things didn't exactly go back to normal. We barely spoke. Everything felt cold, like we were two strangers trying to survive under the same roof. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the possibility that she was lying to me, or the way she made me feel crazy for even asking. Megan became more secretive, especially with her phone. She used to leave it lying around on the couch or the kitchen counter, face up. Now it was always either in her hand or flipped face down, sometimes even tucked into her back pocket, like she was afraid it would spill some kind of secret if she left it unattended for more than 5 seconds. Her work hours got even longer, and I noticed it was never just one late night. It became a pattern. She'd come back tired, sometimes buzzed, always with that same excuse. It's just how the industry is. I chose to keep it all inside. I convinced myself that watching in silence was better than pushing her further away. But the silence turned into its own punishment. 2 weeks passed like that, living together but barely talking. Then, one evening, Megan surprised me. She came into the room while I was folding laundry and sat down across from me. She didn't ease into it. She just said, "Do you want doubts to kill our relationship?" Her voice was low, serious. She went on to say that she knew things had felt off lately, that she could feel the distance too. She swore again that nothing was going on between her and her coworker. Said she would never leave me for him. She told me that she loved me, that she still wanted us, and that she'd do anything to fix what had been breaking between us. And then she said something that caught me off guard. "If you want me to stop talking to him completely, I will." I'll be honest, those words got me. I'd been doubting her so much, imagining worst-case scenarios, prepping myself mentally to pack up and leave. But hearing her say she'd cut someone off for me, that she wanted to fight for us, it pulled me back in. I wanted to believe her, so I let myself. I told myself that this moment was her choosing me. So I shelved all my fears, buried my doubts, and jumped right back into the fantasy I'd been holding onto for months. The proposal, the future, the life we were supposed to build together. After that talk, things really did change. Megan became warmer, more present. It started to feel like the beginning of our relationship again. But looking back now, I think I wanted it to feel real so badly that I ignored the fact that maybe it was just an act. She probably just didn't want to lose the stability we had. I took her words at face value and gave her the benefit of the doubt. And that was the decision that set everything else in motion. There was this annual street art and music festival that happened downtown every year. Bright murals, food trucks, and indie bands with couples dancing in the streets. To me, it felt perfect. I had been thinking for weeks about how I was going to propose to Megan, and when this festival came up on the calendar, something just clicked. It felt like a bold, unforgettable backdrop for what I imagined would be one of the happiest moments of our lives. About a week before the festival, I casually brought it up to Megan while we were sitting on the couch. "Hey, that festival's coming up next weekend. You free?" She looked up from her phone and said she doubted she'd be free. Work was crazy lately, and she had some team commitments she might not be able to get out of. I nodded, said okay, not wanting to push. Then she asked me if I planned to go. I told her I had hoped the two of us could go together. She gave me this soft smile and said, "Wish we could go." Then, almost like she was being sweet, she added, "But don't go without me, okay? Let's just go to that other event in a few weeks when I'm free. We'll make it special." In my mind, it felt like she was being thoughtful, like she wanted us to have that memory together. I took it as a sign that she was being considerate. That whole conversation gave me hope. It made me feel like maybe we had gotten past the rough patch. So when the festival day rolled around, I stayed home. She'd already confirmed that morning that she'd be back late again. I didn't think much of it. That's when one of my friends called, hyped up about the festival and asking if I was going. I told him I wasn't, and when he asked why, I hesitated. I couldn't just come out and say, "Well, Megan told me not to go." That would sound weird. So I dodged. But he kept pressing. And eventually I just gave in. I figured she won't be there anyway. How would she even know? What harm could it do? We got to the venue, and for a while I actually started to relax. The music was loud, the crowd was alive, and it felt good to be out again. I was chilling with the guys, watching people paint murals on alley walls, just soaking in the vibe. Then one of my friends nudged me. He pointed through the crowd and said, "Yo, isn't that Megan?" I followed his line of sight, and that's when everything inside me just stopped. Megan was walking hand in hand with her coworker. The same guy she told me she had distanced herself from. The guy she swore up and down was nothing. They weren't just walking next to each other. They were close, laughing, leaning into one another. I watched them approach a food stand, chatting like they didn't have a care in the world. After making their purchases, he leaned over and kissed her on the temple. And the worst part? She didn't pull away. I just stood there, frozen, like someone had knocked the air out of my lungs. My friends were still beside me, but I couldn't hear them. Everything I had planned all cracked right there on that sidewalk. I didn't confront them. I just turned and walked away from my friends, her and everything. My phone went off, buzzing in my pocket, and I turned it off. I couldn't deal. I drove home. The next hour was a blur. I packed my car with as many of my belongings as I could, left everything I had bought for the proposal behind. I checked into a cheap motel, somewhere far enough not to be easily found. That night, I drank more than I should have. Just try to drown the images out. I don't even remember falling asleep. All I know is I didn't cry. I just stared at the ceiling in silence, asking myself how the woman I was about to make my wife could lie so easily, so convincingly. The next morning, after the festival, I woke up with a pounding headache and the weight of everything hitting me all over again. My mouth was dry from the alcohol I had drowned myself in the night before. I had originally turned off my phone right after leaving the festival because I didn't want anyone, especially her, reaching me. But now I needed to call my boss and request a few days off to clear my head and figure out my next steps. So I turned my phone back on. The message notifications hit my screen like a floodgate had burst. I barely had time to process anything before they started rolling in, one after the other. The first wave was all from Megan. "Where are you? Why are your things missing? Spencer, please call me." That was the beginning. She clearly had no idea I had seen her at the festival yet. But I wasn't responding. I wasn't ready to hear her voice. Then, after what I can only assume was a conversation with one of my friends, someone who must have told her I was at the festival and had seen everything, the tone of her messages changed. Suddenly, it wasn't confusing anymore. It was panic. Voice notes came next. I didn't even need to play all of them to know she was sobbing. Her voice cracked as she begged me to listen, to talk to her, to let her explain. She kept saying it wasn't what it looked like, that she messed up, that she couldn't lose me like this. Honestly, I didn't even know what to feel. And it wasn't just her texting me. My friends were blowing up my phone too. "Yo, where'd you go? Are you okay, man? Bro, you left without saying a word." They were worried, and I appreciated that. But at that moment, I wasn't ready to talk. Not even to them. I took a deep breath and finally made the call I originally intended to my boss. I told him I needed some time off to deal with a personal situation. He was surprisingly understanding, told me to take the week if I needed it. That gave me a small sense of relief. At least work wasn't something I had to stress about too. Once I hung up, I turned my phone off again. I didn't want to keep hearing her voice begging me to come back or read another message asking for just one more chance. I'd seen enough. I'd heard enough. And I knew deep down there was no fixing what she broke. From the motel, I started putting things in motion. I called around, checked listings, and arranged a new place to stay. It was a small apartment, but it was mine. The last time I saw Megan in person was about a week after the festival. She showed up at my workplace. She came in, hoping to catch my attention. Maybe she thought that if I just looked at her, I'd soften. But I didn't. I walked right past her like she was a stranger on the street. And, to be honest, that's what she had become. So here we are. Megan still texts me. Not every day, but often enough that I know she hasn't let go. She wanted to explain. She wanted me to pick up the phone. She was begging for a chance to talk. Over time, the tone changed. Now, her messages are softer. Sadder. She says she misses me. She says she believes we can work through this. That no matter how bad things got, love should be enough. People make mistakes. That we shouldn't throw everything away. I read those texts and, I won't lie, a part of me feels something. But it's not enough. The truth is, I'm no longer interested. When trust breaks, it doesn't shatter like glass, it erodes like stone. Slowly, quietly, until one day, you realize there's nothing solid left to stand on. Over and over, she chose secrecy over honesty. And now, I can't picture a future with someone I have to doubt every time they say, I'm just heading out for work. So, this is where I leave the story. Now, I'm going to turn this over to you guys. What do you think about this whole situation? If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Would you have waited to hear her out? Would you have forgiven her? Or would you have done what I did? Thanks for sticking with me through this. If this story hit home, or even just made you think, go ahead and like and share. I'll see you in the next one.